Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Venus in Leo or Venus in the 5th house. My name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube, and today is going to be the Venus, Leo, and Venus 5th house video. This is part of a much larger series that I'm doing, so if you look down the description box below, you're going to see a playlist where I go through all the signs and houses prior to Leo in the 5th house, and I will subsequently go through everything after Leo in the 5th house after this week is finished. And so this is a little video kind of going through what it means to have Venus in Leo or Venus in the 5th house. There's timestamps down below for that, and if you're looking at this video and you're like, what the heck is going on? What is this man talking about with 5th house and Venus and all these things in Leo, right? There is a link down below as well that you can kind of generate your birth chart and get a better idea of what specifically Venus is in your chart, whether you have Venus in Leo, whether you don't, whether you have Venus in the 5th house, whether you don't, and how that can kind of be laid out. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to message me on any social media, either here, Instagram, TikTok, any of those things, and feel free to obviously check out my website and contact me there if you're interested in any sort of readings. So without further ado, let's just kind of talk a little bit before we get into all the Venus Leo, all the Venus 5th house stuff. Let's talk a little bit more about just what Venus means within astrology. So Venus within astrology has a very beautiful and social aspect to it. So Venus is this smaller benefic as it relates to some of the terms that some astrologers use, and it has a lot to do with our relational values. So when I say relational values, I'm not just referring to literally our relationships, but I also mean like the money we hold, the morals we hold, the value that we hold as an individual that we then either trade for money, trade for time, trade for status, anything like that. But it's all about our morals, our ethics, our self-esteem, our self-worth, and of course our relationships, both with other people as well as with money and our own like kind of resources and money management in that regard. So Venus, depending upon where it's at in your chart, you're going to want to look at to see what Venus's dispositor is, meaning that if Venus is in a Martian sign, being Aries or Scorpio, you're going to want to look to your Mars placement to kind of see more of those things. If Venus is in a more Saturnian sign like Capricorn or Aquarius, you're going to want to look to see what Saturn is doing within the chart, as well as just any other kind of significator, Venus in a Mercury sign, Gemini and Virgo, stuff like that. So definitely look into that as well. The other thing too, obviously looked at the aspects of what else is going on with Venus. So Venus could be in Leo, but also with Jupiter, or it could be, with the Sun, or it could be with, opposition to Mars, square to Pluto, square to Saturn, stuff like that. Kind of a lot of different things that are kind of going on in the chart that really need to be kind of processed and kind of really looked at in a holistic perspective in that regard. So that's a lot about what we have to say there. There is also, with Venus being a lot about our just money, our values, our resources, it does typically dictate anything that is beautiful, artistic, positive, and Venus naturally rules both Taurus and Libra. So if you have your placement in your Venus in Taurus, I recommend checking out that video as well. And if you have Venus 5th house, this is a video for you as well. And then Venus is considered to be exalted in Pisces, and then to be considered fallen in the sign of Virgo. And since it's ruled by Venusian signs, being Taurus and Libra, when it's in a Martian ruled sign, so Aries or Scorpio, it's going to have a little bit of a difficulty in that same way. It's not be as comfortable in that regard. So all that kind of aside, all of that to kind of just preface how Venus kind of works within a chart, we are going to move in to talk about specifically what Venus means in the sign of Leo. So Venus in Leo has a very loud kind of personality, a very loud way of expressing itself, because Leo is this very showy kind of relational planet. Leo is this performer. It's performative, it's expressive, it's loud, it wants everyone to kind of see it, right? And so Venus in Leo tends to have this very performative, loud, public relationship, and or just like a lot of when they want to share their love, it's very, very public and seen. And even just maybe if it's just seen to like a very specific person. So like the thing about this, it's really important when it comes to Venus and Leo, you really want to look to see what your sun sign is. If your sun sign is an aspect to Saturn, for example, this could be someone that is a little more muted when they do show their love. When they do, it's really, really expressive when they really do expose that, and they're very selective with their love, but when they do, it's really, really proud and bright. And Venus and Leo has a lot of love it wants to give. I want a lot of positivity that it has, and it's all about showing one's love, showing one's care, and loving from that kind of joyous, fun way. These are the people that are going to go and take you to arcades or movies or games or sports or art, art exhibits to show you their love, or anything that is really just very just Venusian in nature. So even like fashion can be a very Venus Leo kind of date night. And Venus Leo just kind of has a very showy way where they can be seen publicly, right, for who they are. But they also can't necessarily step away from that spotlight, right? The Leo really wants to be in the spotlight. It wants to be seen. It wants to be heard. It wants to be expressed. It wants to be kind of shown. It wants to show itself to the world. And so it wants to show its values. It wants to show the love that it has, the money it has, the things that it has. And so Venus Leo, it's a lot about really allowing themselves to really live from their heart, love from their heart, and allow that to be what they're showing. And I think when there's placements in Leo, it really does speak to the need for someone to really, really understand the power of their own love and their own optimism and their own positivity and their own vulnerability too. And this is kind of interestingly similar to Venus in Cancer, because Cancer rules the moon, which is very, very private. Leo is way more expressive, way more positive, at least in the sense of like it's external, it's seen, it's public. And it's kind of like what we tend to expose, right? So Venus and Leo, there needs to be a sense of exposing or pride with what they really care about, what they really love, and kind of sitting on that, being proud of that, being happy about what they love, what they spent their money on, what they enjoy. With that too, Venus and Leo can definitely spend their money on some very I don't want to say questionable things. It's not questionable, but it's very joyful things. These are people that would spend a lot of money on games or on partying and romance and fun things, fun experiences, right? Going to concerts, going to musicals, going to plays, fashion, clothes, a lot of that. Because Venus Leo wants to have experiences and be able to see different ways that the world can kind of be and express. There's a lot of joy with Venus and Leo. It has a lot of joy that it really does want to really bring out in the individual's life. And they could also have a very positive relationship with children. I've been kind of saying this throughout the entire kind of Leo series here, where there's a lot of relationships that are really almost childlike, inner child healing. And that's the thing with Venus Leo. It's a lot about their values being aligned with healing that inner child and allowing themselves to be expressed. And this is where you see a lot of models. It's where you see a lot of artists, performers that will have a natural light to them, where people want to see them. They want to see what they have to say, and they see their beauty, they see their light. And so there's a lot of there can be a little bit of a selfishness here, or a self-centeredness with any Leo placement. Venus here definitely will want to share that, and depend upon Venus's aspect, as well as like house placement, there's going to be a lot of different layers of what Venus really wants to show and what it values. And a lot of it comes from what makes them feel good, right? And so the Leo placements are all about really living from the heart and loving from the heart and loving how it makes you feel, and letting that guide you, and letting that guide you to make your choices, to spend your money, right? To really enjoy what it is that you are doing and what it is that you value and what you're spending your money on, your energy on, your time, who you're spending your time with is a really big thing with Venus and Leo, people that lift you up. And there might be a lot of like compliments that you may need more than the average person to feel really good about your style and like what you're showing and how you're expressing. And there's a lot of importance around just being able to be seen for who you are and seen for the light that you're able to bring, and just be really like, ooh, that guy's so bright, or that girl's so bright, they're so pretty, they're so all of these things. I want to see them. They feel so beautiful, right? And so that Venus has a lot of power, especially if you have like your sun in Libra, or if you have like a Taurus rising, Libra rising, any prominent Libra or Taurus placement, that Venus is going to have a lot more power in this chart. So it's really important to look at that. In addition to that, if you're born at night, so if your sun is in the first through the sixth house, you're going to be kind of, and even sometimes in the seventh too, you're going to have a night chart, meaning that Venus is going to have a lot more to say in that conversation versus Jupiter. And so there is a lot of positivity when it comes to Venus and Leo, and the desire to share that positivity and to really bring that to your relationships, to your love, to who you love, how you love, and just express that. And I think it's a really beautiful placement. I've had the privilege of learning a lot about some interesting Venus Leo individuals, and they have a lot of love to give, and they're very showy with their love. They're very exuberant, but when they take it off, when they remove that light, it can be kind of not necessarily disastrous, but it can kind of be darker in people's world, quite literally in certain aspects. But it could feel very like they don't have, when you take the Venus Leo or any Leo placement away from an individual and they remove their light, and we'll talk about this a lot more when we do Saturn and Leo, because there's a lot to be said there, but it's a lot about this idea of when you take the light away from something and you stop feeding it your energy, how it kind of falls apart, right? Because light and the sunlight is just an optimism and joy and positivity and spirit, which are all things that are related to Leo and the sun. We need that to live. We need that to live, and plants need that to live, and organisms and so many lives need that to live and sustain itself. And with Venus and Leo, there's a lot about valuing your light and where you put your light, where you put your optimism, where you put your joy, where you put your energy, and where you show up, right? Where you show up, what you want to show up, what you want to express. And there's also value in taking that away, right? Your light as a Venus Leo, as well as Jupiter Leo, pretty much Leo placements in general, but especially Venus Jupiter, there's a lot of value in the light that you give to the world, in the love that you give, in the romance you give, and it's also important to know more specifically what you want to pour your light into, who you want to pour your light into, right? Who is really empowering you and helping you feel like you're seen and valued, right? There's a lot of really beautiful stuff when you have your Venus and Leo about being able to really share your love, share your value, share your light, and being able to really dig into what that is. And that's where the inner child stuff comes in, and having fun, having joy. Obviously, anything in excess can be a little bit much. And Leo, I think Venus Leo definitely can be one of those placements that can do that a lot, where they kind of do a lot of things. They have a lot of fun. They create a lot of content. They, really enjoy their life, and they maybe spend a lot of money on speculatory things that are really fun in the moment and kind of quick sort of fixes. But it's about also enjoying that process that comes with that, enjoying the joy that brings you, even if it is temporary, but also knowing how to mitigate that with the financial aspect, which is where that square from Taurus and Leo kind of comes in there too. So recognize that as well. There's a lot of that there if you have your Venus and Leo. Obviously, of course, look to your sun sign to see what your sun is doing with Venus and Leo. There's definitely some importance there as well. And of course, if you have your Venus in retrograde, there is a lot of context there of importance, meaning that if you have your Venus in retrograde, there is an 8-year cycle that has a lot of relevance for you to kind of look back at. So 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, and 56. There's a lot of importance to really break down your life in those areas as well. So if you're any of those ages or around any of those ages, there is going to be some importance there as well. So yeah, so appreciate you, Venus Leos. We'll move on to the next one, which is Venus in the 5th house. Alrighty, so we have Venus in the 5th house. So Venus here has a really interesting part of the chart. So Venus here typically will show that there will be a night chart. So this is going to be, unless they have a Libra sun, but even then, there's going to be a pretty likelihood that it's going to feel like a night chart where Venus is going to have a lot more dignity, especially because it's Libra sun anyway. And so with Venus in the 5th house, your sun will likely be in a night chart just in general, because the sun and Venus can't go within 2 signs of each other. So with this being said, Venus in the 4th, Venus in the 5th, Venus in the 6th in certain avenues, but this is where we're kind of getting a little bit more dicey when we get into that in that avenue. But Venus in the 5th pretty much guarantees a really, really prominent focus of that planet, because Venus is the benefic for that chart, and so there's going to be a lot of focus upon this house if you have Venus here. So looking to see what Venus does in the fifth, Venus really thrives here. It really enjoys to be here. This is where Venus is considered to be in its joy in other astrology texts, where essentially this speaks to a lot of Venus just being allowed to do a lot of Venus things. So this is actually a really powerful Venus placement, not just because it is more than likely the sect benefic, meaning that it's the light that is really important between the benefic and malefic, but it's also in its joy. So this is a really good place for Venus to be. It really does have a really positive effect on the native. I mean, obviously, if Venus is aspected very, very difficultly or in a difficult sign and stuff, there's going to be different layers to this. But the fifth house deals with all things fun, romantic, enjoyable, and just the premise of joy and expression, and being able to show yourself in a very positive, joyous, heartfelt light. It's very much being able to just be yourself, express yourself, and Venus loves to kind of just share that value, figure out what that value is, and express it. Now, like I said, it's important to see what Venus is doing in that house. So if Venus is in certain signs, in certain aspects, it's going to kind of have different layers to how it's going to express itself here. But overall, Venus in the fifth really does have an overly positive placement. I've seen a really, really positively aspected Venus in the fifth house that has pretty much created a really fast retirement for them, because they have quite literally been able to just get a lot of abundance, have a lot of fun. They do a lot of nightlife. They have a lot of enjoyment in that regard. They also have Venus in its domicile in Taurus in the fifth. So that's a really strong Venus there. And there's a lot of people that when they have Venus in the fifth, they have a lot of themes around creating games, creating clubs, having, something that they create, they put their energy into, and it makes them a lot of money, especially with that previous example that I said, Venus and Taurus in the fifth. And so there's a lot of value around being able to just have fun and enjoy yourself and enjoy that process, and making money through that is definitely a part of it, and having people around you that really support that kind of process of that creative process, and just your artistry, and allow you to express your artistry. So surrounding yourself with artists will be a really beneficial thing for Venus in the fifth house. Now, Venus in certain signs and things are going to be kind of playing out very differently depending upon Venus's sign here. And so Venus in a fire sign is going to have a pretty interesting time here, because Venus in Aries, Leo, and Sag kind of all have these very expressive, focused things around them. Venus in Aries is obviously going to have a very different approach, because Venus does not do that well in Aries, at least by dignity. So I'd recommend checking out that video if you have Venus in Aries. Venus in Leo is going to have a very expressive, very creative, very artistry kind of part to it. There's going to be a lot of positivity here, especially because that sun sign is going to have a lot to say. And there's going to be a lot of kind of connections between that identity and just kind of how it wants to be expressed. And Venus in the fifth in Leo is really about working with providing value, not just for themselves and creating something really, really beautiful for children, or for just their own inner child, and then in turn it's for other children, right? That's kind of what Leo in the fifth house is about. And then Venus in Sag, there's definitely going to be more of obviously a philosopher's, a more looking past and looking into the meaning behind what your values are. And that's the thing with Venus in Sag, which I haven't gotten this one yet, obviously, because we're only in Leo week, but Venus in Sag has a lot of purpose-seeking, meaning-seeking questions that it tends to ask, because it's in a Jupiter-ruled sign. But in fire, it's a lot about creating inspiration through what it creates, and allowing itself to show that it has something to teach people through just having joy. And that's a lot of what the Venus in fires is about, is kind of leading the pack in the ability to show people that they can be inspired, they can have fun, they can enjoy themselves, they can have a good time. That's what a lot of Leo placements and fifth house placements tend to do. But Venus in fire in the fifth definitely speaks to kind of being the one to ignite that, to start that in others, to really bring out this positivity in just various different ways, right? Venus in earth signs, so obviously Taurus, I already kind of spoke on that one there. There's a lot of success there with Venus in Taurus in the fifth there, financial success, especially from whatever it is that they create. And they really kind of view things as a game too. That's a lot of things. When they view things as games as a fifth houser, you tend to have a lot more success when you view life as a video game, or you kind of look at it as kind of just a game to be won, especially if you have a really positive fifth house, which Venus there more than likely will at least give good things. Even if Venus is not well aspected or in a well dignity, it's still going to do good, right? It's still going to want to do good and try and do good over time through that specific Venus lens, right? Now, Venus in Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, these are going to have a little bit more outside of Taurus. Venus does okay in, earth signs outside of Virgo, obviously. It can kind of be interesting here because Venus in earth signs is kind of a mixed bag where Venus rules Taurus, so it does great. So when it's in another earth sign, it knows that it needs to make money. It knows that it needs to have value. It needs to bring stuff out. Now, Venus and Earth and Virgo and Capricorn, it needs to understand its value through certain means, right? Venus and Virgo needs to like really, really, really tease it out and figure it out and really, really break it down. But Venus and Capricorn needs to just be patient, right? But a lot of it is about bringing their value to them over time through their own effort and through their own inner child work. And there's a lot more when I see Venus and Virgo, Venus and Capricorn, these are the ones that they almost like the work that they're doing to heal their inner child is obviously a lot heavier and a lot more work. But they almost get caught up in that process of healing as opposed to actually just enjoying it, right? Enjoying what Venus wants to do in the fifth, which is really just have fun, enjoy itself, make money, have a good time, create and just live from that heart. And Venus and Virgo and Capricorn can almost make it like get stuck in the process of finding how to do that as opposed to just doing it, right? How to do that or the best way to do it, or like try to really break down why they're doing it, why they're not doing this, why, all those things. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with Venus and Earth. Venus and Earth has a very interesting kind of track record because it's such an interesting way of looking at Venus, because Venus, like I said, rules Taurus. So when it's another Earth sign in that same element, it understands that there's importance to bring those values down to earth and bring those values into reality. But in Virgo and Capricorn, it kind of focuses too much on the process and not actually just doing it, right? Venus and air, so Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. This is where we also have, obviously, Venus rules Libra, so there is going to be some positivity here. Venus just kind of has some pretty decent dignity across most elements, I think. There is going to be more difficulty with fire than anything else. Venus in Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, they have that natural social aspect to them, right? So Venus in Gemini, this is where, and this is something I said earlier with Jupiter in air for the fifth house. Venus, all the air signs in the fifth house, it's a lot about them listening so much to the people around them for that social advice on who they are, right? And that can be a little bit too much, right? That could be a little bit too many opinions between people in their ear about who they are, and they can kind of be swayed by other people a lot. And it's about them being able to truly stay true to their light and true to who they are. But they are going to have to kind of listen to other people and be guided by other people sometimes. And listen to what their audience is saying, what their friends are saying, what their conversations are that they're hearing, how their feedback has been. They're meant to do that. Venus in the fifth is meant to do that. And maybe they want to create something collaboratively, right? They want to create something that's for a community or for just teaching aspects. This is where you'll see Venus in Gemini in the fifth can definitely be like a creative writer, a poet as well. I could see that here as well. Or we see, Venus in Libra. This is a really good one for like fashion design. And anyone that is related to just really being able to be in a creative space that is working with people, which is what fashion primarily does. It's a very Venusian area. I have Venus in Libra and I work in fashion, so it kind of tracks with that. And it's something that Venus in Libra in the fifth can also have a child. This is very niche, but this is more Saturn in the fifth, if anything. But Venus and Libra in the fifth can have this almost like child labor laws or child laws around it. Like I said, that's more Saturnian, but because Saturn exalts in Libra, there is almost this kind of like legal, relational kind of thing in the fifth house where like laws around children or protecting children. Once again, that's kind of a little bit, we're kind of venturing more into Saturn there, but there is a lot of valuing children and valuing what you're creating, right? Valuing the next generation, creating something different. And with Venus in Aquarius, Venus Libra, Venus Gemini, a lot of it too can be really like creating a message that is digestible to children, and or that is just helping children, helping, even just not even just children, but helping people feel more joyous and more creative and more inspired. You can see this also with Venus in fire, but the air ones are more about having that talk about it, having that conversation about, ooh, who's this person? Who are they? What are they doing? What, like, there's a lot of like chatter around who they are, what they're bringing into the world, what they're valuing. And I think when you put Venus in Libra, it's really comfortable here. It understands that there's a give and take with people's opinions, and it's a lot about knowing those boundaries of what someone is saying to you and what is their opinion and what is yours. Venus and Gemini can kind of explore a little bit too many of those and have maybe too many different things going on. They could also have a lot of different relationships with Venus in an air sign in the fifth. There could be a lot of very interesting relational stuff going on in the fifth house here with an air sign Venus, because this is where you'll see people that are very trying to just find a bunch of people. They're trying to just understand a lot of different people and a bunch of different people's opinions about who they are and yada, yada, yada. So you could see a lot of relationally large people with Venus in an air sign in the fifth. Also Jupiter in an air sign in the fifth. But Venus has a little bit more of the social kind of chatter, flirtation kind of thing. Flirting with ideas, like a lot is kind of what we'd see with Venus in air. Venus in Aquarius has more of, like I said, the advocate. It's kind of always what comes up with Venus in Aquarius, child advocate. This one's a little interesting. They're definitely going to have a really interesting romantic side in the bedroom with Venus in Aquarius in the fifth. It's about being able to really express that. They could have this is a very queer kind of placement. And I say queer with the understanding, with the understanding that you understand what queer means. Because queer, sometimes when people think of the word queer, they think of it meaning specifically like LGBTQIA and all that, and that whole like rainbow alphabet, right? But queer has a lot of roots within just counterculture, kind of people's way of living, and that has been really, really deeply associated with the LGBTQIA plus community. But Venus and Aquarius in the fifth definitely has a counterculture thing. Aquarius placements in general have that. And there is definitely a queer romantic kind of placement that we tend to see here. But in general, just someone that is trying to break the boundaries of love, trying to break the boundaries of what we love, what we care about, what I want to create. And there can be some boundaries to love that are a little bit strange and out there with the Saturn and Uranian kind of Venus there. So definitely some interesting lessons around love and values and things that are typically really creative. And they want to create something for like progression, which is what Aquarius wants. So that's why I say there is typically this, counterculture, progressive values about their inner child, their own child, or just art in general, and what they care about in games. And they could be a really big tech person too. They could create a lot of video games as well, which is really interesting. Be interested in coding too, and like the kind of technological process of video games and kind of creating from that space. And yeah, loving Minecraft is kind of a weird thing, and loving those kind of creator games is a very Venus Aquarius thing. Venus in water. So we have Venus, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So obviously Venus is exalted in Pisces here. So we're going to kind of start with that one. Venus in Pisces in the fifth this is like the one that is surrounded by fine art, the one that is surrounded by creating art that is just really beautiful. It's like they're exposed so much to, almost too much sometimes, to so much beauty, so much art, so much, just positivity. Venus in the fifth in Pisces, like I said earlier, Venus is going to have a lot of power here just because it's more than likely the sect light, like pretty much 99% of the time. And then secondarily, it's in its house of this joy. Annex exalted, that's like a whole positive like thing in itself. It's almost like it gets so many different positivity points with that. And so if you have your Venus and Pisces in the fifth house, I'd love to hear about it. Obviously, of course, I'd love to hear about everybody's Venus in the fifth house, but Venus and Pisces in the fifth has a very overly positive kind of placement there, where there's a lot of really rich and beautiful experiences. But Venus and Pisces can also get lost in that. They can get lost in the too many things, right? That's kind of what Pisces can kind of struggle with, where there's too many things that they're idealizing, they're thinking about, they're feeling, they're sensing, they're exposed to. Their exposure is so large, and that's a Pisces kind of archetype there. And then Venus and Virgo, on the opposite of that, is a lot about exposure as well, but it's too much exposure and then bringing it to the mental space and then really trying to tease out all of what is exposed to you and what that value is. And Venus and Pisces can have a little bit more of the legitimate artist. And that's where I think a lot of the overwhelm comes through with Pisces placements. I'm not even in Pisces week yet at all, not even close. But Pisces energy is a lot about this overexposure of things, this kind of like lack of clarity of where the boundaries lie. And so Venus here can definitely have some really unique relationships with money and values, and they can have a lot of philanthropy. They can kind of be surrounded by philanthropist energy as well, where they're surrounded by a lot of fine art, fine jewelry, and fine just sort of things going on. And so there is a lot of value here with this placement, and it is really, really creative, really artistic, really beautiful. Yeah, I love this one. This is one I wish I had this one. It'd be interesting. Like I said, I'd be very interested to hear how this placement has played out for people. Venus in Scorpio and Venus in Cancer. Venus in Scorpio has a little bit more value that they have to really work through. They have to really like work on empowering themselves through. Venus in Scorpio definitely has more of a interesting relationship with substance and substance abuse and just having fun, and that fun having some sort of risk to it, and or just disempowerment and struggle and fight to it. So they're wanting to have romance, they're wanting to have depth, they're wanting to have authenticity, but it's something that they're going to kind of see on the extreme level what they really want. And that's what a lot of people, Venus Scorpios and Scorpio fifth housers, can kind of run into, is running into only getting love or only feeling loved when they are at their lowest and they're at crisis, and they're they're really, really drunk, or they're really, really high, and they're playing a bunch of video games, and that's when they feel that they're like really, really in love with something, and that they're really seen, because that's when they go to their absolute depth. That's when they do it. But Venus Scorpio loves really deeply, almost deeper than any other Venus sign. So it's a lot about being able to transform their values, transform their light, be seen for that. They can make a lot of really twisted art, and empower themselves through that creative process. Like that's a really big thing with Venus Scorpio in the fifth, is an empowerment through creativity. I think it's really, really cool. Venus Cancer, this is a cute one. I already did a video on Venus Cancer. If you have that, check out the video from last season. But Venus Cancer in the fifth has a really just really beautiful kind of sensitivity. This is a really great childhood teacher, caretaker. They can create, this is really random and niche, but like if Cancer and Taurus are present, there could be a really interesting like cooking thing going on, and like cooking creative cooking books and creative games, like cooking game shows is really, 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 really niche for Venus Cancer in the fifth. But like cooking game shows, bake-offs, right? That's a very Venus Cancer fifth house, and being really, really successful at that. And so just being able to caretake for somebody and have that be what you're seen for, what you're known for, and being able to love just caretake for children. This is such like a obviously a mother's aspect with Venus and Cancer in the fifth, but it's like the mom of all the children. This is like a very like the mom or the maternal person that people go to just to feel safe, and they're like, oh yeah, you can just, there's a lot of just beauty with Venus and Cancer in the fifth. I really like this. Is like a really nice one to lean on, because yeah, I like Venus Cancer in the fifth. It's really, really cute. It's really cute, really homey, really nice. But there is also family values that need to be really worked through with that too. So it's about being able to really create and really live from your heart with the fifth house there. And also having your connection to children is going to be a really important thing, and connecting to children help you heal your own inner child, and working on things that you value that bring that out for better or worse, and really learning how that process is and bringing that out in other people, right? Surround yourself with creative people, surround yourself with positive people, surround yourself with artists and dancers and musicians and just art in general, visual art, physical art, anything like that, jewelry. There's a lot of things there. There could be some very interesting. Venus Cancer in the fifth has also a like ancestral richness too, of like, yeah, really interesting like lineage of value, and maybe family business, family creative stuff, like a family of artists as well. You could see that too. So it's a lot of stuff here. If you guys have your Venus in fifth house or Venus in Leo, feel free to comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. I kind of went off the rails here because I just have a lot of energy right now for this video for some reason. But that is Venus in the fifth house, Venus in Leo. If you guys are interested in any of my other videos, any of my other things, my channel's here. Feel free to subscribe, comment, share, all those things. And check down below if you guys are interested in any sort of readings with me. I love, love, love what I do. I'm so grateful to be able to do this on my channel and just kind of share what I know. And it's been such a fun experience as I've been going through this series here. And I really enjoy every single video I'm able to make in this series. And yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And share the love. Keep sharing the love as a Venus fifth house or Venus Leo. You guys are beautiful and amazing and so positive. And I want you to keep up with doing all of that stuff. And so does Venus too. So thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much once again. And I will see you guys later.